So, when we think of sociology, we think about people, we think about societies, we think about human interaction. Now, prior to the development of sociology, people were not studying human behavior with a methodological approach. So I wanted to take the time to kind of go over some foundational concepts and theories along the way. I want to start with just 5 at a time because I think if you try to do too many, it's too many. So let's start with the fact that sociology is a science. Now there are what they call hard sciences and soft sciences. Hard sciences is where chemistry and those kind of things, where they're looking at actual non-human elements and things like that. But then we have some more of the soft sciences, which still uses the same methodological approach, the same research methods, the same ways in which it's done, but it's actually looking at human behavior. Now, it's very challenging to study humans, as you might already know. Humans change from day to day based on their mood, based on their external circumstances, based on what's going on mentally with them. I could go on and on. We can get into the way in which people's behavior is influenced by the economy, by politics, by the relationships they're in. We could go on and on with that, right? But people are not always the same each and every day. Gravity is the same. Gravity is always gravity. But when we look at human behavior, it changes. It's always changing. So it's very difficult to study. There are a couple different approaches that one could use to study human behavior. One is qualitative, when we do things like interviews or observation, or write down like actual aspects that we interpret. Now, quantitative methods is assigning numbers to things and doing measurements. When you go to the doctor's office and there's that little smiley face thing, and you have to pick which one, how is your pain on this scale? Or they may ask on a pain, or you've already probably been asked many times to rate something on a scale of 1 to 10. Those are quantitative research methods. They collect how many people scored 5, 6, 7, 8. They look at the percentages. They look at the trends. That is quantitative methods. And again, this is all very fundamental concepts. And I think that a lot of people want to rush into a discipline and get right to the heart of the matter, really understand human behavior. It's going to take years. It's going to take a lot of effort on your part. So I just want you to understand the basic fundamental concepts so that when it gets more complex, you can always rest back on those. So we're building this foundation. Sociology really is a lens. And if you look at many disciplines in the behavioral and social sciences, they're all looking at humans and human behavior and societies and things like culture and interaction, but they are all using a particular lens which was derived through decades and decades and decades of methodological processes to come to the conclusion. Theoretical concepts then emerge, ideas, new terms, lingo, and in order to achieve a well-rounded understanding that other people in the discipline understand, that's when you start to look through different lenses. So in this way of looking at society through these different lenses, it's not like a bias so much. It's more of a way. It's just a way of, like, you have sunglasses on, you have yellow tint, you have dark tint, you have rose tint. You could look at the same tree outside, but it's going to look slightly different, but it's still the same tree. Now, you and your friends, 2 other friends, each had a different pair of sunglasses. You looked at the same tree. You described the tree. You see things that are the same, and you may see things that are actually different, slightly different. And that's why it's good to approach things in a number of different ways. That's how you get the most well-rounded understanding and comprehension. And again, as much as we want to understand things, there's no definitive understanding. It's really a compilation of what has been understood to this date and what you see and how that all comes together in a synthesis kind of way. That leads us to sociological perspectives, which is like a more academic way of saying lens, but the perspective is, how do I view society from this vantage point? And one thing that I've found is people don't necessarily understand the macro and the micro so much. There's a lot of macro level study of society, and that is the big picture. Macro is way up here. It's everything. It's society's institutions, the institution of education, politics, the economy. Those are large social institutions. Religion, sports is a religion institution. Now, when we look at the micro level, we're looking at small groups of people. It could be a family. It could be 3 people. That's a triad. It could be 2 people. That's a dyad. What then is the relationship between the macro and the micro? Why are you raised a certain way? Like, what is manners, for example? If you've been raised with a certain degree of a knowledge of manners, if someone puts their hand out to you in this society, when you meet them, you almost instinctively, but not because you've learned it, right, will put your hand out to shake their hand. Now, in COVID times, it's probably like a fist bump. I don't know where shaking hands is now in the social cultural ethos, but it used to be a sign of respect, and it's a symbolic act. So that's something that could be studied, that symbolic act. Someone could do a study on the impact of COVID / the pandemic on handshaking. Is it gone? Look at things. I find micro level interaction really interesting. But what I'm showing you is, even though you may put your hand out to shake a hand, that was derived from an idea at the macro level. So there we have a macro level idea, value, if you will, that then becomes manifested in our minds. And then when we meet other people, we put our hand out and to shake their hand. So it was a macro influence the micro, and it can go in the other direction. Things can change from the other direction. Individuals, small groups can enact certain behaviors and values, and then it becomes widespread. It kind of in the way that like a virus in the biological sciences would spread, there could be a spreading of ideas, concepts, words, ways of living. We see that a lot in, probably most obvious is in the language or word choices over time. Nobody says something is groovy, but that was a word that was used during a certain point in time. What I have found is there are a lot of people who use the word amazing, like everything's amazing. They eat a potato chip. This potato chip's amazing. Someone jumps off the Empire State Building and floats in one of those flying squirrel suits, and somebody's like, that's amazing. Now that is amazing to me. So amazing, the overuse of a word could actually disintegrate its profound meaning when we change it. So like, what is then what if something's really mind-blowing? Maybe that's it, mind-blowing. I don't think you could eat potato chip and say the potato chip is mind-blowing unless it was like really, really good, but I highly doubt it. So that's where we can see the manifestations of language, right? Language is a set of symbols. It's part of our non-material culture. So these are just 5 basic ideas that I wanted to share with you to kind of get you going. I really want to delve into content and continue to build a strong foundation, because I know we want to get right to the good stuff. I know we do, but that's going to come along. There'll be some touches of examples of the good stuff, right? But in general, when you're taking 100 level classes in anything, you should be building a foundation, a strong foundation. Now, a 100 level class doesn't mean that it's easier than a 200 or 300 or 400 level class, because it may not be. There's a lot to know. But once you get those foundations and understanding things like the formations of typologies and things, and I'm going to come up with a list of things that I know are going to help you, whether you're studying social problems, the family and intimate relationships, or just taking an introductory sociology class. I hope this video was informative. Have a great day.